I know that a lot of people have been impacted by a current reality of windstorms, fire conditions, COVID, and more. So thanks for joining us. I'm Scott Bricker. I'm the Interim Vice President of Destination Development at Travel Oregon. And you're logged into Travel Oregon's Tour Operators, Guides, and Outfitters online forum, pivoting your business and tour products. So we're going to have an opportunity to share and have an interactive session here. So we'll be, if you want to try out your chat function, you can open up the chat function and introduce yourself as we start this program. Feel free to put in your name, your organization, anything you want to say, just to introduce yourself to folks. We do have about 40 people registered for this program, so we'll see if people chime on throughout. But the program also will be available online on our YouTube channel, and we've been having lots of people watch those recordings. Today is the third of the series of 4 forums that we've offered starting in August and ending in October. You will see in the chat function coming up soon a registration link for our final planned session, which is financial resources, funding updates, and long-term financial tips for the tour operator, guide, and outfitting community. Please feel free to register during this intro section or anytime in the next few weeks before the session starts. Also, we're in the middle of the Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit, which is a month-long opportunity, a virtual program to hear from and connect with industry professionals and colleagues to learn about current and critical issues of the day. Just today we had a topic on wildfires. We have issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, trail construction, building, land management, tour operators, other variety of different content. You can register now, and the registration link, I believe, is in the chat window. It's a $50 registration fee, but you can also register for free. So there's no questions asked if you want to register, and then you can attend the different sessions that you want throughout the summit, which will conclude on October 19th with 2 plenary sessions. So really excited to do that. Just to clarify, the outcomes of today's workshop, the outcomes of the Tour Operator Guide and Outfitter series. And let's see, Jordan, do I have control, or can you move up to? Yeah. Oh yeah, Melanie, can you move up to the outcomes slide, please? The outcomes for this series is to receive technical guidance to support tour operators, guides, and outfitting businesses to safely operate during COVID-19, to share and hear about business experiences while seeking input from your industry peers, and to meet and network with industry peers to support a more collaborative industry. So I'd like to introduce the Travel Oregon team who's producing this and is involved today, and we're also learning as we go. Jordan McCauley is our behind-the-scenes technical operator, destination development coordinator. She's the one who can also help with any technical issues. So if you have any problems or questions, just post them in the chat function, and she can help you there. And then front of the house, Melanie Fisher will be from Consulting Sensei, will be helping us, who's helped us organize these forums, will also serve as today's moderator. But before I pass it to Melanie, let's stay in this full group here that we're in right now. It's I believe a small group of 8 folks. We just do that and have a chance to meet each other, or should we break into 2? I guess I'll let Jordan decide here. I think with 8 people we can just introduce each other really quick. So and with this, we'd like to, let's see, in the chat, we should have posted a question. So to introduce yourself, each person will have a minute to introduce themselves, and the question that's going to be posted in the chat to share your name, your business name and type and location, and what was your most popular business product or service over the summer. So why don't we go around, and why don't we have Dave, if you're there, you can take yourself off mute and introduce yourself.
Hey, yep, I'm here. I'm just kind of greasy and from being hurt and on meds, so I didn't want to use my camera. I own and operate South Coast Tours, where I guide and manage all the bookings and customer service and all that stuff. And I run trips from the border all the way up to Coos Bay, surfing lessons, kayaking, fishing, and we just got a boat this year, so we're doing whales and wildlife boat tours and scuba diving and research trips and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun stuff. And our most popular offering is our Port Orford Ocean kayaking trip, where we do wildlife viewing around Orford Heads there in Port Orford.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. How about Anne-Marie? Are you there? Can you unmute yourself if you are? And if you are there, you can unmute yourself by...
So I'm actually in this meeting twice. I'm having a lot of technical difficulties with Zoom, so I've called in to get the audio, but I'm also in video, so I can see the screen.
Okay.
So yes, I'm Anne-Marie Hingley. I'm with Cycle Oregon. We're based out of Portland, and we had to cancel all our events this summer. So we normally do cycle events, cycle tours, some one-day events, weekend events, and then a 7-day bike tour through rural Oregon.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Nice to meet you here. How about Red? And Red, if you're on the phone, it's *6 to unmute yourself. If you're on the screen, if you're on the computer, you can just hit the red mic to unmute yourself if you're there. All right, well, not hearing from Red, we'll pass it to Jordan and then Melanie.
Hi everyone, my name is Jordan McCauley, and like Scott said earlier, I am a Destination Development Coordinator with Travel Oregon. And I'm on the back end of this Zoom meeting today, so feel free to ping me in the chat if you have any issues with technical difficulties or anything. So I don't own a tour operator business or guide business, but I would just share my favorite activity over the summer. I did a lot of hiking and backpacking, so definitely appreciate outfitters that have gear for, great backpacking camping trips.
All right, thanks, Jordan. And now I'll officially pass it over to Melanie to facilitate the rest of this session and to introduce herself and our featured speaker.
Sounds good. Thank you, Scott. Yes, my name is Melanie Fisher. I'm here in Bend, Oregon, and I have a consulting business, Consulting Sensei, and I am also the outreach person for an event, Mountain Bike Oregon, which we also had to cancel this year. So it's been quite an interesting summer for all of us across the board, for sure. Definitely looking forward to next year when hopefully we'll all be able to come back in full capacity. Fingers crossed. And yeah, so it's wonderful to meet and see people that I've been to other forums. Dave, thank you for coming back. And it's always good to hear with other people how things are going. I just want to thank everyone again for joining us today for the forum about pivoting your business and your tour products. So today we are, we're really hoping you're going to get a lot out of today, and the helpful outcomes are learning key ideas for new products and alternative income sources, learning how to develop and deploy protocols, and understand why collaboration is vital as the tourism industry has changed through the pandemic and what your participation looks like. So today's schedule, next up is a presentation, Pivoting Your Business and Tour Products with Zach Collier with Northwest Rafting Company in Hood River. After that, we're gonna have a second breakout group to have a discussion to discuss your business and how to integrate the ideas that you learned today. So please stay with us once Zach is done. And then afterwards, if we do get into breakout groups, we'll come back together again to have a short group discussion. So I'd like to introduce Zach Collier, our speaker for today. Zach is an important part of the state's rafting outdoor community and also our state's tour operator community. Zach is a board member of the Oregon Guides and Outfitters Association and is based in Hood River. Zach's been in the rafting business for 22 years, and my favorite part is the Sagittarius with the demon puppy. And Zach, we definitely hope your dog mellows with age. It'd be interesting otherwise. So Zach is going to share his expertise with us on today's subject, and then we'll have time to answer any questions that might come up. I do want to share, for those of you that are on the call or on Zoom, if you have any questions, please click on the chat button on your screen and share your question there. You can also raise your hand in case you're not able to do that, and we will help you. All right, Zach, I'm going to turn it over to you. So I'm going to turn screen share off.
Cool, thanks, Melanie.
Yeah.
I'm going to start by just answering those questions myself. We do multi-day rafting trips on the Rogue, Shepco, Illinois, Oahe, and the Salmon River in Idaho. And we do a lot of training courses. Our most popular thing are our 4-day trips on the road, just by numbers of people, but that's always the case. So this year, it's just the most popular because it's always the most popular, but we saw our training double, which was really interesting. So it's not our most popular item, but it definitely was our most improved in terms of selling things. So I'm excited to share with you guys kind of what we went through in terms of COVID this year and some things that we've done to sort of adapt to what's happened. And just for some perspective, we've been through crises before. This isn't the first time I've had a crisis. Since I've been in the industry, the internet was actually a major crisis for a lot of people. There were a lot of outfitters that couldn't figure out how to switch from brochures and phones into websites and email. And there was a massive change in ownership in the late 90s. And that's also when demand started to decrease. The 90s were an amazing time for outfitting. In 2001, we had a dot-com crash, so the economy went down. 9/11 happened, the economy went down more, and people stopped traveling. And so it was another crisis where it was just, people weren't traveling, and it was really hard on our industry. And we were just starting to bounce back and have people felt rich all of a sudden in the 2000s after that happened. And that kind of ended with the housing crisis. And again, another huge economic blow. And that was really hard on outfitting for a couple of years. And this has been an awesome decade. Since about 2010, business has been good for most people in the outfitting industry. And if you can't succeed this last decade, it's going to be hard to succeed. And COVID-19's been worse than these, I think, in terms of a crisis. But it's the next crisis in line, and there will be more in the future. So I'm a big fan of like setting yourself up, knowing a crisis is always around the corner, because there will be more after this. And so the topics I want to go over, the first one is just ways to increase income, some things that we did to address how to make money if there were no trips. And there was times this spring when I didn't think we'd run anything. I thought we'd have zero income, and that was incredibly scary for me. And so I started thinking about how can we make money with things that we have? Even if we lose money as a company, how can we at least have some income? And so on top of everything else, I tried to create income sources. And one of them was, we had a YouTube channel. I just put a lot more time into it. And it's super embarrassing being on camera. I feel super nerdy, but we were able to generate some income through YouTube advertising and through affiliate ads. And so it's just a way to create even some money coming in the door to help pay the bills if we couldn't run trips. We also just started, I realized we had to figure out some solution. Let's say we can't run trips next summer. What does our business look like? And so right now we're in the middle of taping online courses, which I thought were kind of weird, but then I researched them, and people love online courses. And as a company, we have guides and resources, and we have a unique skill set in terms of what we do that people want to learn more about. And it's just a matter of sitting down and taping yourself and selling that course. And I think there's a demand for it. I'm not sure, but I'm using our resources to create this product that we can't sell if we can't run trips either next year or somewhere down the road. We also tried virtual raft training. Only 2 people signed up. It didn't really work, but it was something we tried, and I felt like throwing darts at a dartboard was fun. Like, what can we do again if we can't run trips? And we really doubled down on our training, like I mentioned. I thought with the equipment and the vehicles that we have, what trips can we offer? And training is great because everybody's in their own boat. So it's really easy to social distance. For us, a typical raft trip, there's 3 to 6 people in a boat, and they could be interspersed between family units, where training classes, everybody's separated naturally. And so we really put a lot more effort into training. And for us, training is either like a 5-day course on the Rogue River, where everybody has their own boat, or we teach private classes one-on-one with people who come visit us in one of our areas. And I just kept asking the question, what can we do with the resources we have? And I also invented some new ducky trips. And we'd already done some trips like this on the Chetco River, but the Chetco, they were like extreme expeditions. And so I created some on the Salmon River in Idaho. And so we could maybe offer them in the Rogue River this next summer. And these are, everybody's in a ducky, there's no rafts. And again, everybody's on their own. So the ability to social distance is really easy on a multi-day trip. And we only did a couple of these, but it was definitely like an experiment to see what was possible. And it was really fun. But we were able to, it turns out, run most of our regular multi-day trips. We do, again, trips on the Salmon and Idaho on the Rogue here. We ran most of them, and that was because we had good protocols in place, and it's something I'm really proud of. And to develop our protocols, what we did is start with the Wild Rogue Outfitter Association draft protocols, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then we added in the Idaho Outfitter and Guides Association COVID resource. We had our guides get together, form a guide committee, and put all of this together to come up with our own 14-page protocol. So this is something we spent 2 months doing, and was only possible because we had engaged guides who wanted to do this, and these outfitter associations that had created these protocols. The one on the Rogue, I'll talk about a little bit, we hired a lawyer to create the framework for them, and then we built upon them as an association. So for me, I have a 14-page protocol for how to deal with every aspect of COVID-19, or every foreseeable aspect of COVID-19. And the big things, the big issues we had to struggle with, and probably you guys are struggling with too, is transportation. It's just getting people to and from the resource. For us, it's to and from the river, put in and take out. Putting people into vehicles together, both guests and guides, is an issue. How to have the high-risk guests. And for us, anybody who's in the high-risk category, we highly encourage not to go. And if they still wanted to go, we had a protocol for how we would allow them. Liability, we changed our liability release, and how to handle the liability issues associated with running trips in this environment. And then a big one is how to protect our employees. Our brain, we're probably thinking how to protect our guests, but we have a massive responsibility to protect our employees who work for us. So how do we do that? And then finally, how do we train our employees on the protocols? Our guides and our office staff, how do we train them on what to do, which is a big process, but also get them to buy in, because if they can learn it, and if they don't buy in, it's not going to happen. And so I feel like actually the last one was probably the hardest to actually deploy the protocols. One thing that we did to simplify it for everybody was we took our 14 pages of protocols, and we still followed them closely, and our guides were trained and understood them, but we tried to distill them into the most simple thing possible. So how can we distill to something that we're always aware of, that we send to our guests before the trip, and that we can remind them of on a regular basis? And we even made a video about the 5 protocols, these 5 rules. And this was sort of like something that made it easy, because if it's 14 pages, it's easy to forget major things. And we really hammered on these 5 things all summer long. And for us, this was really effective. And the most effective, we put ropes around areas that we felt were high trafficked, and that we said 2 people could go in those areas. And that was the greatest way to enforce social distancing. So I'm not going to be these, but this is what worked for us, is simplifying our protocols into something super palatable for most people. And then with COVID-19 and in the protocols, there's a lot of extra expense. We had to buy all the PPE for our guests, for our guides. If somebody got sick, we had PPP for our guides who were around them. So this was actually pretty expensive. Over the summer, we had at least twice as many buses, vehicles. We fly people into some rivers, so airplanes. So we doubled our transportation costs at least. We had more guides per trip, so we could have social distancing on the rafts. And it took more office staff and resources because we were answering way more questions and handling way more cancellations and rebookings than normal. So it was quite a bit more expensive for us to run in this environment. So after protocol, I think the key to the protocols and to a lot of business right now is collaborating. I'm a huge fan of this. I think about like what's happening in the economy right now. All the big companies are eating up the small companies. And so like a small coffee shop, for example, doesn't have the resources to come up with how to do the plexiglass, how to train the employees. There's just a lot of work for one coffee shop. Where a large chain like Starbucks, they do this once and deploy it everywhere. And they can spread out the cost and they can do it very well. So if you walk into Starbucks, right now they're very dialed, where a small business isn't as dialed and is going to struggle in this environment. And I feel like as outfitters, we're that small coffee shop. But if we work with our competitors, we can as a team come up with the right answers and share resources to like solve these problems and put out a nice front. And I feel really strongly about this. I feel like it's the only reason we were able to pull off trips this summer is because of the work I did with other outfitters this summer. So a few of the outfitting associations I think that are important. The first one's our National Association, America Outdoors. And some things they did were just newsletters, like what's happening nationally. There's a regular newsletter. And what America Outdoors does a lot of is work on federal legislation and working with our federal agencies. And one thing that they did was work with the agencies to change the rules so we didn't have to pay our fees before the summer. So I didn't have the money or the confidence to pay my normal fee to the BLM to operate. And America Outdoors went to the agencies and said, hey, give us a break this summer. Things are rough. And so we only had to pay a bare minimum fee so we could operate this summer, and then we're paying after the season is over. And so America Outdoors not only communicates with us on national level, but lobbies for us with agencies. And it's worth being a member of for collaboration and just making friends and hanging out. In Oregon, we have an Oregon Association, UGA, and some things that UGA did were create a resource page on the website about COVID-19 and guidelines for creating an operating plan. So if you need help with operating plans, there's some guidelines there, some messaging advice, and then they're working on right now a PPP forgiveness help, some just advice for outfitters, because we're in a unique situation with the 8-week, 24-week thing that isn't the same as most companies. So we definitely you need unique help, and these are answers we hopefully can get answered as a group. We're not all doing. And then finally, local associations, small associations. I'm a member of a few. The Wild Rogue Outfitters Association is a group of just rogue outfitters. And I feel like most of our COVID stuff came from weekly meetings this summer where we sat down on Zoom, we chatted through ideas, formed subcommittees, and we worked together as competitors to help work on how to come up with a COVID-19 plan. And then we built one together. And that's the basis for the one that we used. In Idaho, there's a Middle Fork Outfitters Association on another river that I run. We did basically the same thing, weekly Zoom calls, shared ideas. We approached local communities as a group. Instead of a bunch of individuals pushing them, we'd send one person to say, hey, how do you guys feel about us staying in your hotels, accessing your towns? We formed relationships with them as a group of outfitters, and that was really effective. And if I had to go to everywhere I access, I don't have time as an individual, but if we break this up among all the outfitters, everything got dealt with pretty well. And the County Offices Guides Association is another small example of this association. And my point is, I feel like by having associations, you can work together on solving these large problems, like coming up with operating plans as a big group, not as one company can't, I don't think, can possibly figure out how to do a lot of this stuff. And so, like I said, the Rogue Outfitter Association created this draft plan, which was critical for me. So if you want to form an association of outfitters, if you don't have one already, this can be a particular area, a particular resource, a type of things like bicycling, rafting, however, they're usually formed as a 501c something, but they don't have to be an official organization necessarily. They can be informal. Collecting money in good times helps with the war chest for bad times. So in the road, for example, we've been collecting dues for 4 years, hadn't spent any money. We had several $1,000s that we immediately had access to, and the ability to write a check to hire a lawyer to work on our plans. So having that money in the bank as an association helped us just right away jump on the lawyer we needed to come up with the operating plan. And I just feel like having rapport and practice meetings before emergencies like this really helps things smooth out in difficult times. So I just feel like, for me, the Rogue Outfitter Association is an example of a great success because we all trust each other, we like each other, we had money, and we created a great plan together in a short amount of time. So just some quick takeaways just to follow up. I hope I'm thinking of ways I can create income outside my trips with the resources I have. I hope I gave you some ideas. There's tons out there, but I feel right now I need to find some other way to make money just in case another pandemic hits or we can't run trips next summer for some reason. I feel like having detailed protocols is important, and coming up with something simple that's very communicatable out of that helps. And then finally, I absolutely believe that working with outfitting groups is key to success on this sort of thing. So that's it. I absolutely love questions. So when we have a chance to answer questions, please ask me. That it makes me feel important and special, and I can have some valuable to say. So please take a second and ask questions if you can. I think that's it.
All right, my video one come back on. Thank you, Zach. That was really helpful. I, of course, have many questions, but before I start asking them, I would like to ask the group if there are any questions that they have for Zach. And you are welcome just to unmute your microphone and ask away.
This is Dave. I do, Zach. First, I just thought it was really helpful you've been in business for so long, and I've only been in business like 8 years. So this is our first crisis that South Coast Tours had to endure. And so that was helpful for you to highlight all those other ones you've made it through, which is nice to know. I have a question. Did you ever think about getting outside of like the rafting box? I mean, I know you did training, but did you ever think to go into something completely different?
Like tech or like kayaking?
Like a virtual tour, or like maybe culinary and agritourism, like trips with your vans, or like, I don't know, just something completely different. Maybe use your vans to deliver food or something. I heard people are doing that. I just wondered if you thought about things like that.
I went through those thoughts for sure. I thought everything. What can we do? For sure, like what can we use our vehicles for? What can we use our guides to do? Honestly, I don't know much outside the rafting industry, so I don't have expertise that really provides value. So I kept getting stuck. You know, if I had to use my vans to deliver things, I don't have the right insurance for that, and so I kept getting. And I don't know enough about vehicle safety and all the laws associated with it. So I tried hard to stay in my lane. But if we didn't run trips this summer, I would have been desperate and done anything I could.
Yeah, luckily it kind of opened up a bit, so we didn't have to go down that route, huh?
Yeah, but I thought within my lane, my big thing was like, how can I make any money? Even if it's $100. I just need to have some income come in the door to prove that I'm a business that makes money. If we couldn't run trips and I couldn't make any money, that's when I started thinking, am I even a business anymore? And should I keep going? Like I had a lot of insecurity this spring that we'd run no trips and we wouldn't be a business. So I wanted to make money doing something.
Good question. Kieran, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I wanted to share the question that you included, which is knowing more about cancellation policies for natural issues like forest-wide closures, for fire, off the charts, AQI, and ideas and thoughts on non-refundable processing fees for cancellation. Zach, can you share some thoughts on this subject?
Yeah, so within those crises, there's a bunch of fires where we lost half a season or a quarter of a season, and I didn't put those in there, but there's a lot of like mini crises, and we have to cancel trips. And my general take is, if the guest cancels the trip, they should be responsible for the payments. If we have to cancel a trip, we should be responsible for the payment. So I feel like it's really hard if we have to cancel because they can't even come, because of smoke, because of a fire closing the river, because of forest closure. If we can't run the trip, then I feel like personally that we have to give a full refund. And I've experimented with a little bit hinting towards we don't, and it does not make people happy. It's a really quick way to make your guests angry. So I think to keep long-term guests, you have a responsibility.
Right.
Maybe strong to say, but to keep long-term guests, you kind of have to give people their money back if you can't operate the trip.
Right. And that's what we've run into too, is we're just looking for some of that balance between, you know, I mean, if it's AQI's off the charts, we can't in good conscience run, and no one's coming anyway, but then how do we keep the lights on? So the balance. Yeah, I get it. That's fair.
I think you could put in your cancellation policy, we get this money no matter what. You can write that in and communicate that with people. But I think you'll get fewer deposits or fewer people pay.
Right.
So it's a balance. And my take has been, I put a certain percentage of my money I make every year away in the emergency fund.
Okay.
And I know I'm going to use that money. So my take on it is that, like, every year build this fund, knowing that one out of every 4 or 5 years, I'm going to cancel half my season.
Right.
That's been my answer, but I know that's not easy to do.
And with that emergency fund, how far are you able to stretch that? Like paying office people, paying guides and drivers to stand by? Like tell me more about this emergency fund.
So if I cancel a trip, I won't pay the guides or the drivers.
Okay.
And sometimes I will, or I'll give them other work. But the emergency fund keeps the lights on.
Yeah, got it.
So if we all have we have a 5-month season. If I lose half of that, I can't make it up. And so for me, it's like, man, if I know I'm going to lose, in my mind, I know I'm going to lose a quarter of my season once every 4 years. That's outfitting, that's part of the business. And so I plan for that. And then I use the money just to make sure that I can pay the rent on pay the reservation system company, pay to keep the phones on, pay for the things. It's just built into my business. Now this year, whenever we looked at losing 100% of our season, I didn't have an emergency fund big enough for that.
Right.
That's a new world.
We're definitely looking at, I think we can count on a week or two for fire and smoke in any given place. So it seems like the emergent, almost just building it up to be able to dip into that almost yearly, if you have to.
It depends. It depends on your business and everything. I rarely have to dip into it.
Okay.
We've been able to, we're on the road where the road has had cancellations a lot recently because of fires, but we're diverse now. Like, if we just ran the Rogue River, I would be in a scary position. But because we run multiple rivers in multiple states, if I just lose part of my road season, I have other areas to make up for it. Whereas if you're dependent on one geography, it's scary not being diverse.
Okay, I like that.
And when I built the business, I started on the road, and I knew I wanted to be more places for this reason.
Okay.
I just wanted to jump in here as well. Like, a lot of times you can tell people to have travel insurance, to use that in case they don't get their money back. And Zach, any thoughts on that?
We push travel insurance really hard. We send them an email a few days after their trip saying, hey, by the way, don't forget this is your cancellation policy, and here's the travel insurance you should buy. And, travel insurance works if they get hurt and they cancel. But if we have to cancel a trip, I found that travel insurance doesn't really work. And so so maybe some do, some don't, but travel insurance companies have a way of getting out of things. Like, they figured out how to get away from COVID. So I wouldn't personally depend on the travel insurance unless you understand that particular company. It's written in the policy. You have a very specific thing.
Okay.
I have some outfitter friends who have insured their businesses towards smoke and fire. That's a possibility. It's just really expensive. And I feel like I'd rather self-insure, which is the emergency fund, than pay for the insurance. But it's the same thing. But I think that also when a guest buys travel insurance and then you cancel a trip because of smoke, they're going to come to you for their money back. They don't go to the travel insurance company because they know you had to cancel the trip. So it's a weird thing to be like, we had to cancel it. We're going to keep your money. Go collect from the travel insurance company. And then when the travel insurance company gives them the runaround, it's super awkward. And so I've just said, hey, I've realized if we have to cancel, maybe travel insurance covers it, but I've given up on that personally.
Do you ever try to have the conversation be not about canceling 100%, but maybe extending their trip to next year? Do you have success with that?
Yep. We'll say, hey, let's get you this. I'd say 50% of people are like, yeah, cool, keep our money, we'll go next year. But we have to be careful with that. Like, just because you kept their money doesn't mean it's your money. So it's still a liability. And so whether I give them their money back or keep it doesn't matter to me too much because I need income this year to pay bills this year. And so I would worry about keeping their money, and then some outfitters, if their accounting isn't quite right, will spend that for their bills over the winter. And then and then if they want it back next year, you own them. You have to give it back to them for some reason. Or if you have to cancel next year, you're really in trouble. And so I'm a big fan of you only spend the money that you actually actualize, not the money that's in the bank because of deposits.
Yeah, that is very smart. Just keep you safe out of the red, hopefully.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have another question?
I do. Shuttling seemed like it was going to be a major hurdle this year, and so we ended up just canceling a lot of our shuttling trips. So what was it, the Forest Service or BLM that gave you the protocols that you needed for that? Or did you just come up to it and then did you have to submit that to them for approval?
No, they didn't. The Forest Service and BLM was super hands off. They were like, you guys are the experts. These are your businesses. You need to be responsible, but we're not going to expect you to give us the plans. And so, nobody was watching us. We could have put 15 people in a 15-passenger van. Like, there was no enforcement, which I'm not saying is bad in any way. Like, I like lack of regulation. But we just did what we thought was smart. So, what we try to do is in a 15-passenger van, never put more than 8 people in there, but also try to group by family. So, family units did really well. And then we encourage people to drive their own cars. And so on the road, they can pay for it, have police do a shuttle, and have their own car shuttle. And so we really encourage people to drive their own cars. And if they did go on our shuttle, we would minimize people per vehicle, and then group by family unit, and then masks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kieran's writing, we took guidance from shuttling from Oregon Transit Authority. Yeah, I haven't seen any of that, but I bet that's great.
I have a question. This is Scott. So Zach, I'm not sure, I didn't really hear you talk about, but maybe you did and I missed it, but changing your pricing. You mentioned that costs, basically per person have went up because of fewer people on a boat, more vehicles, more guides per person. I know in some restaurants I've eaten at, and I've been trying to go to local restaurants to just kind of help them. I like to eat out, but but I've noticed prices have gone up a good deal. Did you guys look at pricing changes for the season? Did you do any pricing changes? Do you have any thoughts about that looking back?
We didn't. I wish we had, of course, but I don't know what the reaction would be. I mean, I'd always love to take more money. But it's a hard one because people had already booked these trips usually 6 to 12 months in advance in our case. And so I feel weird charging different, like saying, oh, if you book more recently, it costs you more. I don't know. It seems like maybe a good idea because they add expense. I think people understand, but we didn't look into that at all.
All right, thanks.
If I knew for sure next summer was like this summer, I would be raising our prices quite a bit. But I think that I'm looking at the assumption next summer would be more streamlined than the summer. But maybe a different answer to the question is, I think it's a good idea. It's just hard to know. I feel pricing is a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, my sense is that people would, there's obviously some people who would be like, oh, I can't do that anymore. But I kind of wonder, my sense is people would probably be willing to pay a 10 or 15% premium, or I don't know what the right number is, but with the realization that there's going to be fewer people on the boat, you're going to have more attention, like all that other stuff. And people, I think, would recognize the costs have gone up. You may lose some customers. But anyway, yeah,
what we did do, it's funny, think of something. We did offer private trips at Cosmo. So what we did a lot of was say, we're going to offer a trip for just your family of 4, 6, or 8. And it's going to be more per person. So we did a lot of more expensive private tours. But we did do that.
Okay, cool.
I have one last question for you. You talked about collaborating with your competitors, and I'm just wondering how awkward that first conversation was and how did it go? I mean, can you share a little details about the meeting and kind of what transpired out of that?
Yeah. So I learned to outfit from a couple of guys who had been in the industry since the 70s, and they were friends with the entire industry. They just knew everybody. They go to parties, hang out, they call all the time. And I thought that was pretty cool. So when I got into outfitting and there were new young people, I would try to meet them. My computer picked it up, sorry. So I thought that's pretty cool. So when I was a new young outfitter, I made a big effort to go meet other young outfitters and hang out with them. And so I would just call them and say, hey, I don't really know you, but we're doing the same job. Let's get lunch. And it would be awkward. It is an awkward thing for some reason. And I just powered through it. And I can think of a couple of examples of people who now are great friends. And one in particular that was a key to the spring on the road. So it certainly can be awkward because you are competitors and maybe you both are fighting for the same Google search term, and there's like you're playing a game of chess with them through Google. But I feel like it ends. The awkwardness definitely ends.
Got it. So it's worth the awkwardness for having that opportunity.
It has been for me. But I'm a socially awkward person, so that makes it harder. I'm sure some people are more suave, so it's easier for them, but I'm sure for me it's especially awkward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nice. Well, thank you. Are there any last questions at all? I think we're good. Awesome. Well, Zach, that presentation was super helpful and educational, so thank you for sharing. And now let's kind of go back into a group setting and just have a discussion between everyone. Just giving everyone an opportunity to brainstorm and think how this information can help everyone individually with their businesses. I don't know if everyone wants to turn their mics on, but the thought, we can give everyone just a couple minutes to go around and, what are ways that you could collaborate with other businesses to stay successful, not like in the same circumstances, Zach, of, working with other river raft guides, but just even in your community, are there opportunities that we maybe haven't thought about that could bring more business and income to us? So, and how everyone plans to integrate these ideas into your operations. So we could go around. Dave, I see that your microphone is on. Do you want to go ahead and be the first person? We'll give you about 2 minutes to, what ideas that would work for you to collaborate with other businesses to stay successful.
Well, I think the one that I've been trying to work on sort of not giving it as much attention as I probably should, but it has worked one time, is connecting with another accommodations booking platform. So I got an agreement, but it hasn't fully gone through. But when they get their confirmation for a room booking, that South Coast Tours is a recommended recreational provider with them, so that everybody who books that room sees our name if they read their receipt, I guess. And I think that could be huge. I would love to do that with many more accommodations on the South Coast. It just hasn't happened. Usually I don't feel like I have enough time, but I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years. But this year it really seemed more important than usual. So I don't know about too many other collaborations off the top of my head, but I really think that one could be beneficial.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And who knows what will come out of just even having that conversation and doing that. I mean, more ideas could potentially transpire. So, yeah. Would anyone else like to share?
This is Anne Marie. I think one of the things that resonated for me in what Zach said was working with other similar organizations to help develop the protocols for running programs with COVID. I spoke with another bike tour operator, and they talked a lot about how that was the way they found the best way to open the door to being able to do large events again, was to get a consortium of similar organizations all working together to agree to protocols that they felt comfortable with, and then getting those reviewed sort of in bulk by the state or the county health organization. So for me, good to hear that that seemed to work within the rafting and guiding industry, and maybe that's something to continue to pursue for cycling as well. Yeah, so that was one thought I had.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. It's not only meeting with competitors and other businesses in your area and asking what they're doing, but just even finding out what their protocols are, because you might learn from them, but also, just safety and knowing that you can share clients, and you're not going to get bad reviews from being passed to someone that is unfavorable. So very helpful.
Yeah, and I suppose our customers who enjoy a certain type of recreation are going to expect to see similar protocols across different companies. And so if they go someplace and they're like, oh, this thing that made me feel really safe isn't happening at this event or this organization, then you're right. Then you might get those bad reviews, or they might not want to come back if they didn't feel like you had their health and safety as a priority.
Yeah. And even like going back to the question to Zach about, just how awkward the first conversation is, that could be a great icebreaker with other people, and just wanting to be on point with the other businesses in your region. So helpful. Yeah.
I just want to add one quick thing. I don't think you need to give the protocols to your local health people, the BLM. You just need to have them. I think that's important. I don't think they know how to I don't think they know, the local agencies know your business or how to interpret them. I just think the key is that having them is important. So you're doing a responsible job for both your employees and your guests, and that you're, if you needed to provide them in case of a lawsuit or something, you had them. But I don't think they need to be given to anybody, like turned in like homework or anything.
That's a good point. And in most cases, it's more about having them to put on the website so your potential clients can see and, build trust and faith in your business. So yeah, good point. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? All right. Well, I am going to switch gears then. This has been super helpful, and this is, just really important information. Who knows what our next year is going to look like, but to plan ahead and be on top of it, to be able to pivot as necessary, is really key to being successful. So Zach, thank you again for all this important information. I am going to go back to sharing my screen. Let's see if, there we go. And I just want to share with you guys some next steps. I mean, this has been a great conversation, and at this point, we can continue the conversation beyond today on the Basecamp page. And if someone is not on it, you can reach out to any of us, Jordan especially, who sent out the emails about today, about how to get you on Basecamp. And so we can continue the conversation there. You know, get Zach involved to help with any questions he might have. Also, if you are wanting personalized support, you can follow this link, industrytraveloregon.com/Togo for the tour operator guide outfitter, technical assistance, and whether you want to talk to me or I can even pass you on to Zach to have some individual time to talk about your business and get help. Also, we have our last of the 4 forums in the series coming up on October 20th, and it's going to be about current financial resources, funding, and tips. Resources will include non-loan potential funding opportunities that are available across the state. So registration will be available in the chat box, and it'll be on Basecamp as well. And I know Jordan will be sending out more emails in the future. At this point, I am going to pass you over to Scott, who has some important information to share with you all. So I just want to thank everyone for coming today and participating. And I think I'll be looking forward to seeing everyone again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and thanks.